I hope you're having a good day and ready for an exciting little video covering 3 teaching points. The first is the idea of downloading, using that download to feed an import. That's number 1. Number 2 is how to do a multidimensional import. That is, say for example, you have one expense you want allocated to a bunch of functions. Instead of making those different rows in an import, how to just make a table with each of the functions across, similar to what we do with the budget import or the payroll import, but this will be how to set one up yourself. So multiple dimensions, rows and columns, and importing the whole shooting match. Say for example you wanted to have a student's classes across the top and you wanted to import it and give each department credit as a function for the classes they're teaching, and so you have their tuition and the functions different for everyone, and you want it all to go each class and you want it all to go in. That's what this is all about. And then the third one is how to automate the entire process, where you push a button, it downloads, it does a and then imports itself back up into the system. Say our class example is going to be take all the overhead items that are going to in-house operations and then allocating them based on a percentage back to the departments. I'm not a big fan of allocating costs, but it is a tidy illustration, so you'll see what I'm talking about when we get there. So let's get started. We're going to do this in several steps. So I've created a summary report here. I'm in Excel. I've logged into Q&A, and I've created a summary report here in cell B5, and I'm filtering on everything that has been charged in-house operation. You could see here that my analysis code is a filter to only pick up transactions that have gone to in-house operations. And what I'm listing out here is very straightforward, and remember, it's a summary report. It's going to make a listing. So it will be account code, description, the base amount, and then the analysis code. I know it's a little bit silly, but I want to make sure that I'm getting just in-house operations. So this is a very unsophisticated summary report, looking at all of my accounts, but only choosing the transactions that have been charged to in-house operations. So here we could see that we have these accounts, salary, car depreciation, everything that has in my sample database have all been charged to in-house operation. Now what I'm going to do is create a allocation of this to these departments that I will put right here, these other functions. And basically what I'm saying is I want to allocate all these costs that were originally charged to in-house operations. I want to allocate them to other departments, maintaining their same account though. So I will be debiting and crediting the salary account, but crediting it for in-house operations and debiting it for the other function. So let me get that constructed, and I'll come back and show you what I've got. This is like where you watch a cooking show and they stick something in the oven and then they pull it out 2 seconds later and it's done. That's what we have here. This is the results of my summary report right here in this little section. I have inserted my layout indicator here for an import, and I have these departments, these other functions that we have decided we want to allocate these costs for. We're going to allocate them based on these relative percentages: 100, 230, 80. These are not percentages. This is square feet in the executive secretary's department. This is in presidential, treasury, accounting, vice president, and family ministries, for a total of 940 of all of them. And then these cells here are creating a fraction, taking this, multiplying it times this numerator and dividing it by this denominator and rounding it. We don't want to be importing parts of a percentage, parts of a penny. That just confuses the system. So we're rounding it to 2 decimal places. This is our little formula here, and then we're rounding it, and then I've just cut and pasted all the way across. Then I add it, which should be the same as that figure there. I add it and cause it to be negative because it's going to be a credit. So this debits to these accounts and this is credit to the account, the same account. So for in this first row here, salary will be debited by each of these and then credited to in-house operations. if you don't completely understand or agree with what I'm trying to do as far as accounting is concerned, let me just tell you, don't sweat it. I'm not a big one for allocating a bunch of cost either. But it is beautiful to think about where we can use this, let's say in the area of expenses that need to be allocated to all the partners in the expense according to some basis. It's the same principle. We could have a student account here, and we have several accounts here that we are trying to charge, like tuition, room and board, academic fees. So it could be one student account all the way across, and each of the columns of what expense accounts is going to, or revenue accounts is going to. So this is just an example. And so we want to import this where we're debiting and crediting these accounts here. We are debiting these functions and crediting this function there. This is the period and this is the date. All right, so let's look at the data send that brings us up. And for some reason, I haven't quite figured out, but in my little world here, the program is putting my data send in the back so we can see the data send. Now, there's nothing new in this data send that's not in any other data send except for the ability to handle the multi-dimensions. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over it. This is sort of assuming that you have seen data sends, but there's videos on how to exactly set this thing up over on our import videos under the import folder. But let's just look at the ones that we're mostly interested in. There's nothing new of this, the header here, and on this first page header, this is all the standard setup. But where we get exciting is over here, and it's really so simple it's almost hardly worth such a big video. Remember, our function was the one across the top that is multidimensional, and the amounts are multidimensional. So let's look at the way that we do that. So let's come down to where we normally put in our function, and you could see the way that that is done. I hope that that is clear there. You could see that I have just put them in with commas in between them. So let's just take a peek at this. So the function is there in the 3 row, and it's F3, G3, H3, I3, J3, K3, and L3. And that's what I have typed in right here. You can just see I have them right across here. So that's F3, comma, G3, comma, H3, comma, I3, comma, J3, comma, K3, and L3. It's important to notice that I've got to put dollar signs in the front of them so they're locked down here. When I copied that down, they're locked in this column. So that's important to put the dollar signs down on the ones that are being locked down. And then, so that's then the column heading. And then on the amount, that's right here, you could see that I've got in here F6, G6, H6, I6, J6, K6, and L6. And that is this row right here, right across here for salaries. But I haven't gotten those locked down. Software will just iterate down on each one, keeping the function the same, but we'll go through this thing working down just like you always have done in a ledger import. And so that's a very straightforward and simple little thing. It's so simple that I'm really excited about learning. And you know, lots of the things that we learn in Sunplus are complicated and it's hard to do, but this is really simple. If you already know imports, adding a multidimensionality about it is really cool and simple. And so we click that baby, seems to be going. So 98 records were transferred into Sun Systems 5 and 6. So here we are, we go over to ledger import. So here was the one we just sent in. We'll review it, get this thing going fairly fast here. Ledger import process, we go okay. Now for you that are curious about this, rewind this to mention something to you, a little interesting thing. If you have 10 or 15 of these things, you can review and run all of them at one time. You don't have to sit and do each one of them at a time. I will tell you that the problem with doing that is if you have a problem, you don't know which one caused the problem. So if you can imagine having 20 ledger imports that all need to be brought in, you can go review all and run them all. If they don't cause you any problem, then you've successfully done it. If one of them does cause a problem, it's a little hard to figure out exactly which one caused the problem. Let's go ahead and run it. Ran successfully, and it will post a JV coming up we won't wait on watching the JV come in. Now let's automate this baby. What we're looking for is that we're going to put a run button right here that automates the entire process. A couple things that I want to draw to your attention. First off, to make this automation work, we need to go over to our options in Excel, to Trust Center again, and go to macro settings here and have it trust access to VBA project model. That's a one-time setting that we need to choose. Once we choose that, then we can use this functionality whenever we want. We'll go OK, and we're OK out of there. A couple observations I'd like to make. First off, right here we have a summary report, and let me just open it and point something out to you that I'm sure you all already know, but summary reports all have names, and as you make summary reports, you make summary report 1, summary report 2, summary report 3. You can actually name them like you want, but I would just let the default come in, and so it's summary report 1, and summary report 1 is populating this little section right here. Then to help you recall, I mean, I know it's the same video, but then we calculated here, and then we imported, and when we did the import, we did the data send, and we loaded the definition file, and that was data send 1. So what we are wanting to do is to run summary report 1 and recalculate, and then do data send 1. And so let's see if we can't bring that about. Well, what we're going to use in Q&A is under Utilities, functionality called Macro Builder. This is really cool, make you look really powerful. I'm going to overbuild a little bit here just for educational purposes, just so you see it. So let's clear a range just to mostly so you can see it working. We need to name it, so I just clicked Options up here, and the button we're building, the macro we're building, is named Run. Then I click Clear Range. Let's clear the range of, this is mostly I'm doing just so you can see this thing working. I'm clearing the range of B6 to E20. We're clearing out the old values, so if we're running this every month, we want to clear out the old. Then the next thing that we want to do is that we want to run summary report. You can see all these commands that you could build into this macro. It's really cool. Run summary report. There it is. A summary report actually exists not connected to any field, and so we want it to run starting at B5. That's where it is right now, but we could have it run and throw it anywhere we wanted it. B5, and we want to run summary report 1. It's asking me here, do I want to run an internal definition file? I say yes, I want to run summary report 1. I want it to recalculate a range, and that's the section right over here that I want it to recalculate F6 to L6. You can't see the L6, but it's right there. F6 to L19. So that's from here and all the way down over here, and then off of the screen you could see we wanted to recalculate F6 all the way down to L19. So let me make sure we got that F6 to L19. And then after it's done that recalculation, we want it to do the data send and run a data send, and that's data send 1 that we want it to run. It says, do we want to use an internal definition file? Yes. And data send 1, and we go OK. And then when I click the OK button, it already exists. That's my practice there, and you could see here that it has put a button right there into my deal. And let's see if we can't move this where we want it, and we're good to go. And let's see if this thing works. So we click it, it's running, it erases, and it happened so fast you didn't really get a chance to see it, but it sent me a message that 98 records were transferred to Sun Systems 5 and 6. That's for every one of these cells over here. So there you go. Now if you want to work on it or add and modify it, you just go back, go to Macro Builder. It's just the same as everything else that we're doing in Sun Systems Q&A. Excel, we have a definition that we have created, the macro definition, and this is the one that we built right there and here, and so we can modify it and work on it if we needed to. So that's the way you automate these Excel sheets. Now I have made a couple really cool ones. I made a special ledger entry sheet in Excel, so you could imagine that I have a cashier's desk over at the college and I have 4 or 5 cashiers collecting money from all the students. So I made a cash entry ledger entry sheet where they just populate just a few things, the student number and the amount the student's paying in the student's account, and they push run, and it all goes into ledger import to be imported later, but at least it's a way to capture the data. So I hope you find this is useful, and I can't wait to see the great creations you make from it. So stay tuned. I've got some great plans coming for some more videos, and so just keep watching.